this story today in ABC, holding this up to the screen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the nuclear.
Trump allegedly discussed U.S. nuclear subs with foreign national after leaving the White House. See, the thing about the Mar-a-Lago document case is, originally I think there might have been some thought, okay, maybe it's just trivial stuff. It's just papers. He's keeping them around as souvenirs. But it's hard to imagine if you and I were just gaming out this, or if we were writing a script, that it would be almost too much on the nose to say, what was the most sensitive possible thing you might leak out? How about the capabilities of American nuclear submarines? So here's the ABC report. Months after leaving the White House, former President Donald Trump allegedly discussed potentially sensitive information about U.S. nuclear submarines with a member of his Mar-a-Lago club, an Australian billionaire, of course, who then allegedly shared the information with scores of others, including more than a dozen foreign officials, several of his own employees, and a handful of journalists, according to sources. The potential disclosures were reported to special counsel Jack Smith's team, blah, 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 blah. Prosecutors have interviewed this guy. His name is Anthony Pratt, who runs Pratt Industries. In those interviews, Pratt described how, looking to make conversation with Trump, he brought up the American submarine fleet, which the two had discussed. According to Pratt, as described by the sources, Pratt, the billionaire, told Trump that he believed Australia should start buying its submarines from the United States, to which an excited Trump, leaning toward Trump as if to be discreet, then told Pratt two pieces of information about U.S. submarines, the supposed exact number of nuclear warheads they routinely carry, and exactly how close they supposedly can get to a Russian submarine without being detected. Nothing to see there, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, there's another part of that story where this guy mentions the Mar-a-Lago male cougar, whatever the word is for a male cougar that is at Mar-a-Lago, that he mentions it to three
jackal.
Jackal. There you go. Three ocelot, three former prime ministers of Australia. So this stuff, it's not, again, like this guy has been talking about it and chatting about it. This is not my area of expertise. I don't know exactly how big of the threats are, but again, I think it
doesn't sound good.
The legitimate, and it shows the legitimate concerns people had with the Saudis. Like what is Jared whispering to the Saudis if they're just whispering things to random Australians at Mar-a-Lago? I do want to flag one other thing. Do you remember the story? I'm not saying that there's a direct connection here, but again, I think it just shows the sensitivity of all this stuff and the recklessness with Trump was dealing with it. Here's a story from September 2021. Australia bailed on a submarine contract with France worth $66 billion last week, choosing instead to work with the United States. Outrage, France recalled its ambassadors from the U.S. and Australia. Very well could be nothing to do with the story, but I just think that shows that was there. That all of this stuff is very sensitive. That there is a reason they call it diplomacy, and you just can't be just randomly going up to people at weddings at your club, talking about nuclear subs. That's just something you can't do.
Okay, so the fact that we know about this conversation, ought to at least suggest that maybe there were other conversations, that maybe this was the chit-chat around Mar-a-Lago. Think about how much foreign governments spend on espionage, and yet the cheapest thing they could possibly do apparently is buy a membership to Mar-a-Lago. That's all you really...
And we already know that was happening. We already know the Chinese were doing that, so I'm sure there are things we don't know.
And it's interesting, remember all the outrage about the Chinese balloon? How dare we allow that Chinese balloon? And there's Donald Trump going, hey, the nukes. They have 7 nukes. They can get within 100 feet of whatever. Okay, changing gears because you can explain this to me. Maybe you can explain this to me. I'm genuinely confused. This is not pretend confused. What is going on with Joe Biden and the wall, the border wall? Okay. Do you know the? Can you track that out for me?
I think I can.
Thank you. I was counting on you.
This.
Okay.
I'm not now. Okay. I'm sure we could bring on an immigration reporter that could give you the nitty gritty of this, but I can give you the broad strokes. Okay. So there was, the previous Congress, had funded certain amounts of the wall that Donald Trump didn't build, right? This is something we all know.
There's money there.
Mexico was going to pay for it. No, it turns out they weren't. America ended up paying for it. Donald Trump, despite this being his top priority, only built 1/19 of the wall or something, 1/59. And so there were at least, I think, 20 more miles that had been funded when Biden came in. There was some legal wrangling over this, some fighting over this, but just similar. I think there's the parallel I can think of is when the Obama administration had to defend DOMA. And they were like, Obama's like, I'm not for this, but this is the law. We live in a country with rules and laws. And the government, if something has passed the Congress and been signed, the government, there's only so much you can do. And so the Biden administration, I think, has been, basically said, okay, well, now this has been decided in the courts, so now we got to build these 20 miles that there's already been the funds for. Okay. Now within the Biden administration, I think that there are competing views, right? There's some people that are like, this is really bad and terrible. There's some people, apparently Mayorkas, head of Department of Homeland Security, that are like, actually, we could probably use 20 more miles. Like, I'm not for the full wall, but like this place is, this is a high traffic place. And maybe President Biden disagrees with him, apparently, because during a comment yesterday, Biden was like, no, this doesn't work. So does it work? Does it not? I don't know. I think that that is like what is happening here, which is I think that they legally are obligated to do it, and they have differing views within the White House. And obviously this isn't ideal. Usually it's best for the White House to speak with one voice and have a clear message on things like this. And frankly, you could see some political advantage, maybe.
Well, this is what I was going to get to, because I mean the Politico playbook, if I'm remembering this, seemed to suggest that this marked a little bit of a pivot, actually a rather dramatic pivot on Biden's part, because they recognize this as a huge political liability, and so you're seeing a little bit of panic here. Look, they're throwing something up against the border because this is going to be a big issue in 2024. You don't see it that way? You see it as more of a bureaucratic working through, as opposed to,
I think it's
guys, we got to do something at the border because whatever we've been doing isn't working.
Yeah, I think it's two things. I think that it's bureaucratic. I do think that Joe Biden, I know he gets no credit for this, but has been, like, to my taste, actually a little too cautious on liberalizing immigration stuff. I think that I don't know this, but I think that it might help. One thing that might help is expanding the amount of asylees we're expected, and expanding a guest worker program. So that might take some pressure off the border. Maybe that wouldn't help, but I think that's one idea that's out there that a lot of pro-immigration groups are pushing for. He hasn't wanted to do that because he doesn't want to seem like too pro-immigrant. I think he's worried about that, right? And I think Joe Biden does come from this old Union Democratic mindset that was a little hostile to immigration, right? Because of wages and all that. So anyway, I think that Biden has not been the liberal open borders president that the Fox wants him to be. I think that the problem at the border is very real. I think that there's some people in the administration that are concerned that, maybe they can do some things to alleviate that, to make it less of a political problem. And I don't think that there's I think that the real long and short of this is I don't think the Biden administration has a coherent view on it.
Okay, that's what I was getting.
I think he's a lot of staffers who are super liberal. He's more cautious. There are a couple Department of Homeland Security guys that are like, let's be tougher, and end up with a policy that's kind of
okay. See, I think that's exactly right. Is that you don't have a coherent policy. You do have certain, I would say, you do have progressive elites who have a very outsized role in the Democratic Party. Rui Teixeira is absolutely right about this. But I think that you're also right that Joe Biden has very different instincts. And so you get that push-pull. And it's kind of messy. Then they need to clean it up over the next couple of months. What are you going to be watching over the weekend? Tim, give me something to keep an eye on.
What am I going to be watching over the weekend? I mean, I guess I'm going to be watching to see if there's any actual momentum against Jim Jordan, which we talked about at the top. I'm going to be going to the Goose concert at Red Rocks in about 12 hours. So I'll be watching Goose. I guess that's a more micro answer to your question. And I hate that question. I always
okay.
As soon as we hang up, I'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to be watching this other thing."
Well, no, I mean, so what we're all going to be watching is how deep the chaos is going to be in the Republican caucus. I mean, there's that. It's like a euphemism. The Republicans are now in uncharted territory, which means no one has any fucking idea what's going to happen right now. And so it is going to be interesting to see What is the reaction to Trump's endorsement of Jordan? Do they just roll over as they are wont to do, as they usually do? Will there be some pushback? Are there 5 Republicans who are going to say, no, we don't want to go with the seditionists? Is there going to be any rallying around Scalise? Is this going to be one of those things where it's going to be next week, where it's going to be 15, 20 ballots? And are they just going to say, okay, Patrick McHenry, we don't care. You just stay there. You just keep doing that. As long as you keep expelling. By the way, what do you make of the expelling of Nancy Pelosi from her Capitol office? It just seemed like pettiness on steroids, but also an indication of this is our future. It's going to be about retribution and revenge from here on.
The Nancy Pelosi thing is related to my answer to your other question, which is who are we watching? And we're watching the people. I don't want to pick on my friend Jonah, who I agree with on a lot, but there's this phrase called the closet normals they use. That there's a lot of closet normals over there in the House. Republicans who are normal, but they have to be in the closet about it.
Deep
and they're deeply. And I know a lot about the closet, so I can talk to you about that, about the way that warps one's brain. But McHenry is like the poster boy for this group, right? If you ask anybody who are the closet normals, McHenry is like the first name that comes up.
He looks like a normal, right? I mean, he
looks like it. He's from the old Chamber of Commerce wing of the party. He's managed to survive, by keeping his head down. And bow tie, you can't be an authoritarian with a bow tie. You know what I mean? Like you have to be a Michael J. What was it? An Alex P. Keaton Republican with a bow tie.
Well, anyway. I mean, Tucker Carlson lost the bow tie right about the time that he decided to go pure fascist, right? It's like because you can't be Mussolini in a bow tie.
Great point. Anyway, the thing that so I will be watching the McHenrys of the world to see if any of them actually let their normal out of the closet, and the Pelosi action leads me to expect that the answer is going to be no, because it's like if this guy is the one that we're supposed to be like, oh, he's going to bring some. Just like take the temperature down. But then he's up there banging the gavel like an angry little elf and saying, I'm taking the keys to your office while you're at a funeral. Like that leads me to believe that there really aren't that many. That there just aren't that many people.
There's no deep closet state here. We're really left with, what degree of crazy are we going for? And considering the fact that people are going, maybe we should have propped up Kevin McCarthy is an indication that it's just sort of like crazy, less crazy, seditionist crazy, what? We're just constantly defining our deviancy down, right? So, Hey, have a great weekend. It's always good to talk with you, Tim, and thank you all for listening to this weekend's Bulwark podcast. I'm Charlie Sykes. We will be back on Monday. And we'll do this all over again. And by the way, if you are a regular listener to the podcast, you might want to check us out on YouTube as well. Tim's got his takes. I've got my Charlie's takes. And this whole conversation is up on YouTube now.